Hello and welcome to the FatBoss Guide to Gruul on both normal and heroic difficulty in the Blackrock Foundry.
Yes, we're finally in the Blackrock Foundry and Gruul is your first boss, and he's an alright first boss. I'd say he's pretty average. It's quite cool that you're actually fighting Gruul again. He has got some of his old mechanics like Petrify and all that kind of good stuff, but overall, a fairly simple first boss.
Now for this encounter you do want to bring 2 tanks. In a 10-man composition you'll bring 2 or 3 healers. In a 30-man composition bring around 6 healers. And any DPS is absolutely fine, just bring a mixture. Now as this is your first boss in the instance, you can imagine it doesn't actually have too many mechanics, and they're relatively easy to deal with. However, it's still very important that you understand how they work, as it is quite easy to mess up on this encounter. Now the most important ability in this fight is something called Inferno Slice, and this is something that your tank needs to deal with. This is a slash that is applied to the tank that deals large physical damage, and increases the amount of damage that he takes from this ability by 20%, and this debuff lasts for 30 seconds, and as you may imagine, it does in fact stack. Now this ability will also do a large fire damage cone, which deals damage that is split amongst all enemies that are hit by it, and when these enemies take damage, it will also apply a dot to them that starts doing ticking fire damage.
Now if the tank was just to take the whole slash by himself, it'd be pretty much one shot. The physical damage component is more than soloable, of course, because it only does hit one target. It's just the giant fire damage. You do need a large group of people to soak this. So what you would do is set up 2 different groups on either side of the boss so they can help eat up the fire aspect of this ability. So when Inferno Slice comes in, you face it into that group, the group takes the damage and that's all good, and then you'll face the boss back away and just continue on with the fight.
Now for the tanks to actually drop their Inferno Slice debuff, the one that actually increases the amount of damage you take from the physical aspect of it, you'll need to swap on 2. However, using the tactic we're about to explain, you'll actually be dropping it on 3. Now the reason why you drop it on 3 is because of another ability called Overwhelming Blows. Now all this does is just deal physical damage to the tank, and it will apply a debuff to him that increases the amount of damage he takes from this ability by 10%. And one thing to note, when he applies it to the tank, he will also attempt to apply it anyone within 10 yards of the tank. So make sure that your tanks aren't stacked, otherwise they'll both be getting this debuff and it will make it very, very difficult to drop. Now the reason why it is difficult to drop is because this debuff lasts for 1 minute, which means it's difficult to align with the Inferno Slice debuff. So as we said, as a tank you'll actually need to get 3 Infernal Slices, but you still need to make sure that the individual groups only remain at 2. Now you can do this by putting 2 Infernal Slices on one group, and then moving to the other group and putting 1 Infernal Slice on that group. You then want your other tank to taunt and put 1 Infernal Slice on that same group, and then move over to the initial group and put 2 on top of that one, because by the time he's moved around to that group, their stacks would have in fact dropped. When it comes back round for your first tank to then taunt again, he needs to taunt at the latest possible moment, just to make sure that his Overwhelming Blows debuff actually drops, and this just so happens to be at the exact same time that he casts an Infernal Slice. So taunt on that Infernal Slice once your debuffs have dropped, and then you continue the fight from that point exactly how you have.
Now when the third stacks do come in as a tank, you are going to be hit really fucking hard because you already have 2 stacks of the debuff, so this third strike is going to hit you for 40% harder, and it already hits hard enough as it is, so make sure that you do save some big boy damage reductions for this, and of course ask for externals if you need them.
And again, tanks, do be careful when you are moving from group to group. Make sure that you are not stood on top of each other, because you can apply the Overwhelming Blows debuff to each other, and if that does happen, you're going to completely fuck the stacks. It's going to make them very, very difficult to drop, and it pretty much just screws over the tactic. Now ultimately you don't actually have to do it that way. If you really wanted, you could just have each group take 3 Infernal Slices.
Yeah, you could just do that. It just means that that group's going to be taking more and more damage, and their dot's going to be higher, and you've got to heal them up quicker. This way just kind of minimizes damage, and it does mean that the tanks are going to take quite a lot of damage.
Yeah, it might be a little bit difficult for your tanks to get your head around it.
To be honest, if you're really struggling, you could probably just, let your Overwhelming Blows stacks go ridiculously high and hope the boss dies.
We did, yeah.
We just kind of
did that on a single kill. We just kept swapping on 2.
And the tank stacks just went ridiculously high.
They had like 30 or something.
Just make sure the Inferno Slice goes on people and don't stand on the tank is the bottom line, I suppose. But if you wanted to do it excellently, then do follow what we just said. So apart from all that nonsense about the tanks, which is quite overcomplicated considering it's the first boss, here's some easy things for your range to deal with. And the first of which is Cave In. Now this is just a little AoE circle that will spawn, and like some shit from the ceiling will fall down and it'll deal physical damage to you. Just move from it it. Of course, it can spawn right on top of all of you, so it's really good when you are in your groups to be slightly spread out, so not everyone has to move when this ability comes in, but overall, just move from the ceiling falling on you.
Another ability for the raid to worry about is something called Petrifying Slam. When the boss casts this, he'll place a debuff to roughly a third of your raid, and this debuff will begin to quickly stack to 5. Once it does reach 5 stacks, that character will then turn into stone and will shatter, dealing AoE damage to everyone around them. As soon as you get this debuff, make sure you move out the raid, move away 8 yards, and then that way you won't do damage to anyone apart from yourself.
Now do note that when you do initially get this debuff on you, you will be knocked up, and when it is stacking up on you, it is making you move slower and slower. So reacting to this ability quickly is key to making it so you're not all stacked on top of each other, because this can come in at the exact same time as an Inferno Slice, and if you decide to take it to 3 and that extra explosion on everyone, you're just going to fuck people over. So move out if you get the Petrifying Slam.
Another ability the boss will do is Overhead Smash. This is a 4.5 second cast where he'll slam the ground, dealing a small amount of damage to all the players in the room. However, he'll also send out a shockwave. If you're hit by this shockwave, you'll be knocked up in the air, you'll take a stupid amount of damage, and you'll probably die. Just make sure you avoid this cast. It's super long. It's not a big deal. Now, the last thing for you to really know about this fight is that the boss will go into a destructive rampage. And all this is just a 6-part sequence where he'll just spam overhead smashes over and over again. These overhead smashes do the exact same amount of damage, however they have a 3-second cast rather than a 4.5. So you just need to be very quick to move from them and that's it. And then the fight just goes back to normal.
Yeah, you can kind of use this opportunity maybe to kind of help your tanks maybe drop their overwhelming blows. But once again, we don't want to talk too much about that because we've been talking about it for far too long. But you might be able to use it to your advantage. But generally, move from things that look like they're going to kill you because nothing's here that is good on this fight. Everything that looks bad is bad. There's no magic healing circle unless your druid placed one on the floor. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire encounter. It's all about making sure that you are stacked up for the Infernal Slices so the tanks don't get one shot by the fire damage aspect of it, and generally trying to manage overwhelming blows as best you can. And if you can't be fucked, then just hope that your DPS are quick enough. Because you can do it. You can just nuke the boss before he kills your tanks. Fingers crossed, but you'll be on like 50 stacks or something. But either way, thank you very much for watching, guys. If this guide did help you out, then make sure you leave us a like. It helps us out a lot. And as well as if you want to see any of our other Blackrock Foundry raid guides, then make sure you click up on the annotations you see on your screen now. And that'll take you straight to those videos.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.